No.
Good afternoon, Commander Joshi. Yeah, okay. You might be.
Any idea how I get the chat panel on the right hand side?
No, you don't worry. I will ask you those questions.
Okay, fine.
I will collate the questions as they come in, and we can take it from there.
That is nice of you.
So you can sort of concentrate on the address. Good afternoon, Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Professor Murthy.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I should thank you for extending the invitation to me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure and it's an honor to have you here.
Good afternoon once again, Karthikesh. Are we ready to go? Can we start?
From my side, yes.
Yes, sir. Vice Chancellor, sir, shall we start?
Yeah. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. On behalf of the senior management at Dayanand Sagar University and BITES, I would like to thank all of you for being here today and listen to this extremely pertinent address by Karthikesh Ramachandran on employee engagement in academics, considering the fact that we are in the midst of great uncertainty. So how do you engage employees? Karthikesh Ramachandran, or Karthik, has worked for 30 plus years with the Tata Group in diverse industries such as Tata Steel, Tata Consumer Products, Tata Housing, Tata Coffee, and Trent in different roles. He's worked on productive maintenance, quality, that is ISO 14000 for environment, in HR, including corporate social responsibility, health, safety, and environment. Karthik is a certified assessor for Tata Business Excellence Model, Affirmative Action, 5S, TPM C2, Sustainability Assessment, and Quality Circle Facilitator. His belief is that multiple small changes can lead to big improvements and strives to develop a culture of process orientation in the organization that he is associated with. He's a keen listener of audiobooks and tries to keep abreast of new social media developments. Karthik is currently working as Vice President, Strategy and Operation at Chrysalis Services, an organization dedicated to transforming the social sector. On behalf of all of you, I would like to once again welcome Karthik Ramachandran to the Dayanand Sagar University, and I'm sure it's going to be an enthralling session over the next 1 hour or so. So, Karthik, how it's going to work is that we would hope that you would speak for about 45-50 minutes, and then we will open it up to question and answers. The audience are urged, I urge the audience to post their questions in the chat window, and then I will collate them and then sort of field them to Karthik, who will then answer. So that's how it goes. And thank you very much. And I hand over to Karthik for the moment.
Thank you, Professor Nagraj. Good afternoon, everybody. And my thanks especially to Professor Murthy and my good friend Arvind Srinivas, who has facilitated this opportunity. And I welcome all of you who are either seekers or dispensers of knowledge. I'm moving on to slide 2. So this is a little bit about the place I currently work, but just to add to what Professor Nagraj already said, I have been privileged to spend about 30 years in the Tata Group of companies. And for me, it has really been a privilege because every 3 to 4 years, I have been lucky enough to change companies or profiles or locations. And these have been in different places like Bhubaneswar, the interiors of Jharkhand, Mumbai, Chennai, a little bit in Pune, a little bit in Kolkata. So my family and I, we have had the option to make many friends across different cultures and learn many new things before finally settling in Bangalore. So my last stint was with Tata Consumer Products, whose regional office is in Bangalore. I retired in last year in October, and I decided to do something which made me more meaning to me. So the current company that I work for, Chrysalis, we basically facilitate NGOs to get their funding in place, to write project proposals for them, to do due diligence. And just to give you a little input about how the NGO scene is in India, 40% of the CSR spend, which is about 13,000 crores, goes to the 4 states of Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Gujarat. The real states which need it, like UP, Jharkhand, Bihar, Uttarakhand, Chhattisgarh, and MP, they get just around 11% of it. So we saw not only a business opportunity, but also a chance to do good. This is a fledgling company, and a big change for me also because the company works virtually with our 14-member team spread all across different cities of India. So we do not have an office, and other than the director, I have not met anybody else in the organization. So it is interesting the way we work in this day and age. Moving on to slide 3. So yes, before we start, I would like to take a few minutes to tell you the difference between employee engagement and satisfaction. Let me start off by telling you a small analogy. So many of you must have heard of Vidyarthi Bhavan, which is a very popular restaurant in Baswangudi. When you go to Vidyarthi Bhavan, everybody knows that there is a brand name behind it. You would like to go there because the food is good. And the hygiene factors that you would expect, that it is clean, there is no waiting time, hopefully there are no flies, the waiters are well dressed, they are decent in their behavior towards you, and the food is palatable. You may not expect the same standards from a smaller hotel where you also stand and eat. Now, this is a hygiene factor which you would expect from Vidyarthi Bhavan, but the motivating factor or the engaging factor would be if it was sparkling clean, if the waiter greeted you with a smile, the food came to your table within a reasonable amount of time, with the one popular dish, which is the butter dosa, which a lump of butter melting on your dosa right in front of you. So over a period of time, these motivation factors become hygiene factors. And if it goes below that, then it becomes a dissatisfaction. So in an organizational context, what I have mentioned here, if you see on the right-hand side, pay, benefits, supervision, working condition, and job security are hygiene factors. You stay there. If you get a better opportunity, you would leave. But to really engage yourself and to really motivate yourself, the factors that you would be looking at are challenging work, recognition, and responsibility. So the point that I want to illustrate here is, even as the hygiene factors cannot forever keep you engaged. Any slippage in the hygiene factors leads to dissatisfaction, but an increase in the hygiene factors may not necessarily lead you to engagement. There are other elements to engagement which people look for. So I have tried to model this presentation around Aristotle's theory of the 5 W's and 1 H. While you see only 4 W's here, the who is also implicit in the where. So Professor Nagaraj, I just thought a little change to the format. As I finish each section, maybe we could take up questions about that section, or at the end as you suggested. Which do you feel is more convenient?
I'm sorry, Karthik, I just missed that. Can you repeat?
So I will be dividing this presentation into a few sections. Just to make it more topical and engaging with the audience, maybe we could take these questions at the end of each section. Or if there are any comments, other alternative points of view, those are also welcome.
No, I would actually suggest that you go through and then we'll take it at the end.
Very well.
Yeah. And I would urge the participants to post their questions on the chat box, please.
Yes. Thank you, Captain. Moving on. So I hope you're just able to see a few definitions. Mentally, the question is, what are the keywords that you can get from here? So I will leave this slide on for 5 seconds. So in all these statements, which are different definitions of employee engagement, the keywords that you get is emotion. Emotion leads to dedication. Emotion leads to enthusiasm. Enthusiasm and dedication where the efforts make a difference. And people are invested in organizational outcomes, which reflects in behaviors, attitudes, and language. This is just a small depiction of what actively engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged looks like. Right? So I'm sure mentally we can also visualize different examples of the same. So I am at this point just setting the base for what comes next. I have got some information on how the Maslow's theory can be applied to the principles of engagement. At the bottommost, we see survival, followed by security, belonging, importance, and self-actualization. There may be different organizations, and when I say organizations, they could be academic institutions, they could be companies. So once again, we all, at a personal level, could figure out at which level of the hierarchy we are in. And as I said, survival, security, belonging are the basic tenets of employee engagement. And it is not necessary that their being there will lead to their being there and them being enhanced will lead to higher levels of employee engagement. Over a period of time, the same 3 could also lead to employee dissatisfaction if there is no change in those parameters. Okay, so with a brief introduction to what employee engagement is, I will move on to the why. I'm on slide 10 for your reference. Okay, so this is a dilemma which most companies have. Should we do it or should we not do it? A typical catch-22 situation. We talk about engaging our staff and leaving. We also talk, some organizations also have the same approach to training. What if we train our staff and they leave? So the horror question is, what if we don't and they stay? So what are the different dimensions of employee disengagement, right? So there is a whole bunch of them: low employee satisfaction, high employee turnover, lack of empowerment, unproductive workforce, negatively contagious climate, poor quality of output, high absenteeism. Yeah. The benefits of employee engagement, I will delve more into that. But then there are specific metrics which are measured with respect to employee engagement. Employee engagement initiatives should ideally lead to higher productivity, lesser rework, more creative inputs, higher levels of improvement, higher NPS. NPS, also known as Net Promoter Score, which is very popular in FMCG companies, where they ask the customer, how willing are you to recommend this product? So generally, they say that a score of 0 to 6 is a low net promoter score, and a score of 7 to 2 is high. And finally, one metric is the higher pride of belonging. Okay. So some of these signs of employee engagement on the left are exemplified by the behaviors on the right. So employees who are withdrawn, they do the minimum just enough to get by and do not want to be singled out. So they would prefer to stand at the back of a crowd and not bring attention to themselves. Poor communication is another concept, uh, where the person with a low engagement level would hesitate to express his point of view or would give monosyllabic answers, which where he has communicated but not communicated effectively enough. And questioning the status quo, which is very necessary for improvement in this day and age. Similarly, a disengaged employee would give a response which he thinks the questioner wants to hear. He definitely does not want to buck the trend and would prefer to keep silent, saying it's none of my business. He's talking about somebody else. Right? So a similar example to this could be like many of you have seen in the news what is happening in the US nowadays. Many of the senators from the Republican Party are neither willing to condemn Trump nor praise him. They find it politically correct to mind their own business. Some more signs: complacency. Why take the extra effort? There's a decline on work quality. The responses could be, no, it isn't my fault. It isn't my job. I wasn't told properly what to do. There could be cynicism. Oh, things will never change around here. What's the point in saying anything? This is always the way that they have been there. We can't change anything. Yeah. So I tried a lot of research to get some inputs on any research which had been done on academic institutes. So I found this one research in the public domain. So the research where I'm showing a few samples of the elements of the research. So the gender and the work experience, they have taken it across a band, right? And this was the kind of people who had been surveyed. At the bottom, you see, is the kind of organizations that had been surveyed. Moving forward, when the research actually happened, so these were the questions which are also known, these were the questions which were asked of the respondents to gauge the level of employee engagement. And the results are something like this. So I have ranked them from the lowest to the highest. The lowest in this case is about not getting enough recognition or praise. It is also about someone not having talked to me about my progress, about my opinions not seeming to count. and people not encouraging my development. I have shown it just as an example that if an organization so chose, these would be the areas that they would need to work on primarily. Now, if we look deeper into the results, there is a correlation. Slightly complicated slide, so please bear with me. So on the left-hand side, you see the questions with different colored dots assigned to them. And on the right-hand side, the previous slide where the results were there, you see the lowest score with the corresponding dot assigned to it. Right? So for example, while there is not a very strong correlation, you will see that the higher level of employee engagement, which are from questions 6 to 11, sorry, 6, 9, 10, 11, 7, and 8, are featuring near the top of the right-hand side, which means while the basic tenets of employee engagement have been taken care of, the higher elements of employee engagement are low scoring. Right? Okay. So moving on. Just another depiction of the different levels of employee engagement. And you can correlate it to the information which was presented in the previous slide. So right at the bottom, we have what do I get? And then the employee moves to a state of what do I give? Then he questions himself where he's starting to become engaged. Do I belong? And if I belong, how can we, not I, we, along with the organization, learn and grow? So where you see it is very important not only to look at opportunities to learn and grow, it is also necessary to measure the progress that has been done periodically. In this case, as suggested over the last 6 months. Yeah. So where should employee engagement happen? So whether you are a CEO or a supervisor, the place to start is yourself. Engagement is contagious. If you're engaged in what you're doing, people pick up your excitement and will want to join you. So the keyword here is employee engagement is not just the leader's job. It is not just the CEO's job or in this case, maybe the dean's job. It is everybody's job. Okay. So there is a story that in NASA, when a very senior person from the White House went there and he asked the toilet cleaners, how are you? What are you doing? So he got 3 kinds of responses. The first one said, I'm a toilet cleaner. What's so great about that? The second one was slightly more neutral. I have a job and I feed my family. And the third one, my customers deserve the best. So the color coding is on the extreme left, you have the actively disengaged. The gray one, you have the engaged employee. And the right one, you have the actively engaged employee. Right? So the questions that you ask and the answers that you elicit are also a great indicator of what are the levels of employee engagement. Okay. So let me tell you a story about 2 MDs that I have been associated with. So the picture is just an illustrative one, but also has something to do with the story. Most organizations nowadays have a calendar of employee engagement activities. They would celebrate birthdays, they would celebrate festivals, they would get people to dress up on the days of the festivals, and so on and so forth. So this particular MD, let us call him MD Mr. A. Mr. A was very prompt in attending all the employee engagement functions. He would be the first person. He would make the right speeches. He would hand out the prizes as required. The back thing, he would sit in a corner table with 3 or 4 of his senior people and enjoy on the face of it the whole show. The second MD was a far more introverted one, not much given to speaking in public. The only thing that he used to do was during the lunchtime, and this a practice of having lunch on the terrace of its office, where all the employees were encouraged to have lunch there so as to not to give a chance to rodents within the office. And this MD, Mr. B, he followed a simple principle. Every day he would sit at a different table. He would not encourage any of his senior colleagues, his vice presidents and general managers to sit with him. He would sit with whoever was sitting at the table, irrespective of whether they were the cleaners of the company, whether they were the managers, or whoever it was. And that was it. So consider these two contrasting approaches and just think to yourself, who do you think was more engaging? Who do you think would have far more bonding or a good relationship with the employees? The question that begs to be asked is employee engagement, is it a culture or is it an activity? A culture is something that is prevalent all the time, a culture that can be seen and that can be felt in everything that happens in the organization. If it is an activity, like I said, there is a calendar attached to it. The HR or some other such department would post the calendar on a monthly basis, and all the activities need to be ticked off, hoping that at the end of the year, if and when there was a survey on employee engagement, the organization would get a high score. So in the words of the CEO of Facebook, whom we are all very happy with criticizing nowadays. So, and it says, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that the impact lasts in your absence. Perhaps an analogy to this would be, do your children behave the same way when you're around and when you're not around? So let us move on to how employee engagement is done. How does it happen? And I will also try to take you through personal examples of mine. Okay, so I picked up some organizations which have good employee engagement practices in India. This is a global IT services company, and as you can see, some of the initiatives that they do consistently is that the work environment has to be flexible. Very importantly, involvement in company decisions, either through a suggestion box or through an email to a designated email. Encouraging creativity and excellence, which would mean having different types of innovation awards, innovation ceremonies, healthcare, initiatives for women, other activities, right? So coming to one more company, Marriott Hotels. So the initiatives that they follow are through talent development, cross-department exposure, performance incentives, public recognition, open communication, and very importantly, work-life harmony. So the keyword nowadays is not work-life balance, it is more about work-life harmony. American Express, India. So they talk about in their culture having positive relationships, promoting talent and growth, rewards and recognitions, fun at work, gender diversity, a smart savings scheme since they are in the banking sector. So this is with regard to two companies which I have worked in the recent past. The one on the left is a big company. It has 8,000 employees across time zones. And these are the initiatives that were followed during the time of the pandemic, where virtually everybody was sitting at home. The senior leadership, without fail, would have a quarterly communication, whether we had something to report or not. A third-party training portal was installed, and employees were encouraged to train themselves. And one interesting thing the CEO would do was maybe twice or thrice a week, he would randomly call up different people across the globe just to inquire how they were going on. And you can just imagine how thrilled an employee who has not even had the occasion to see the MD physically would be at getting a call from him. There would be monthly communications over email or intranet, and functions. As a process, they had created WhatsApp groups, and the heads of the functions were asked to check in with anybody who had not responded to or replied on the WhatsApp group within 24 hours. After office, the organization had different Zoom sessions on yoga, finance, mental health, nutrition, all very important these days. And one day was declared as a no meeting day. We have all heard of in these days Zoom fatigue, where our heads and ears start to pain because of having the earphones on all day. The second company on the right, the one I'm with presently, has just about 14 employees. But then, like I said, this is a virtual company. We have not even met each other. So the daily huddles, they begin not just with starting about business. It starts with asking, how are you? What did you do yesterday? How is the weather in your place? Delhi, for example, is about, as I read in the news, 3.2 degrees centigrade. Very cold indeed. We would have a weekly all hands meeting where two employees by rotation would run a program of fun and frolic, again having to do it all virtually. New joiners, obviously, they are unable to physically meet any of their colleagues, and to make them feel better, to get them better into the organization ingrained, we have a buddy program where one slightly senior person is assigned to the new joiners for a period of 1 month, and he or she will have regular calls with the new joiners to make them more comfortable with the, not only with the processes, but also with the culture. And as the senior leadership, we made it a practice that we would periodically ask silly questions just to ensure that any legitimate doubts which may seem silly to the questioners are not left behind. And the last one was very interesting. So the CEO generally led this activity. And one example I can give you was we, on a particular meeting day, we had totally ignored one person who was in the meeting. We did not respond to any of his calls. We did not listen to anything that he said. And when he called up the CEO during the meeting over phone, the CEO cut the call by saying, "No, I'm not interested," pretending that he was a salesman. And the poor chap, you can imagine how confused he was for that day. So a small suggested template for employee engagement. Before I do that, let me just take you some of the emerging trends of employee engagement. So, a people first culture. Companies need to put people at the beginning of their agenda, and every individual, whether he's at the top or the bottom, needs to feel cared for. So, cloud technology, as we all know, is here to stay. HR, for example, has done amazing progress in cloud technology. For example, many of you may have already experienced this. Leaves are granted over phone, approvals and rejections are granted over phone. And this has also already become a hygiene factor for most organizations. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, we are seeing more and more instances of usages of that. Robotics is another thing that is coming in big. And all this leads to reducing the normal monotonous job that people do. And sorry for that, it gives a lot of input for making logical and proper decision making. redefining the human in HR. People seek compassion, appreciation, and recognition. There is a lot of importance on emotional well-being. Emotional well-being is how we relate to people, how we respond to them, and how we listen, especially to what is unsaid. One example could be that even if you have to point out somebody's mistakes, you criticize the action and not the person. And emotional well-being definitely facilitates a greater sense of belonging in the organization. So employees become brand ambassadors. Why? Brands are trusted. They are seen as genuine. They are also seen as contributing to social causes. Uh, how do you become a brand ambassador? Uh, you become a brand ambassador by talking about your organization on social media, by feeling proud and telling your friends and neighbors about the organization that you work for. One example I think that we have all seen in Bangalore is how proudly employees of prominent IT companies carry their backpacks on which you see Dell and IBM and TCS and companies that they are proud to belong to. Workplace wellness, yes, this goes without saying. I was giving you some of the examples of Zoom sessions that we have had. Uh, in our previous company, we had this initiative called a stepathon. So what the stepathon was that the whole company was divided into different groups with senior people leading each group, and there was a app to be downloaded by each employee, which would record the steps that she or she had walked in a day. And the next day, we could see not only on an individual basis the ranking of who had walked the most steps, but also which team had walked the most collectively. And an offshoot of this was within the groups, the leaders of the groups would call up people and ask them, Kya hua? You walked only 3,000 steps yesterday. What was taking you so much? So this was the kind of a casual connect, which also led to a lot of bonding and a feeling of engagement with the organization. Diversity and inclusion in the workplace. As we all know that in India, uh, the workplace is very heavily male dominated. The percentage of women is in the workforce is only about 25%. And conditions need to be created for making it safe, for making it a better workplace. And the same relates to people who are either physically or otherwise challenged. I think one of the best examples we have in the recent past is that of physicist and scientist Stephen Hawking. You all know about his story. Many companies make it a policy to also employ people from the LGBT community. Uh, they do not shy away from talking about it on their websites. People with disabilities, there are special infrastructure and provisions made for them. For example, speaking software for those who are visually challenged. Career growth, as we said, more and more people look for how they can grow their careers rather than stagnate at what they have been doing. And this is all more so because now the kind of entrepreneurial and job opportunities have spread far beyond what is traditionally seen as a career. Prioritizing mental health, starting from Deepika Padukone to so many other people, uh, celebrities and doctors talking about this. And some of the signs that we can see about mental health is sleeplessness, aches and pains, weight gain, irritable behavior with others. So I think companies are now taking the effort to call out the elephant in the room, not only recognize it, but take proactive steps to address the same with proper programs, counseling, interesting and challenging work. Are we still interested in doing the same work that we have been doing for so many years? Perhaps not. And as you are all aware, the breed of the workforce now is slowly changing. We have the Gen X, who were born between 1980 to 1995, and what we call the millennials, people who were born between 1996 and the early 2000s. Research says that three-fourths of the workforce by 2030 will be in either of the two categories. And again, research says that majority of the millennials do not like to work in areas where growth is stagnant. They would like to see growth, which is visible and consistent. And growth in the organization should be frequent, timely, and fair. Employee-friendly benefits, gone are the days where an employee would be happy at receiving a watch at 5 years and a gold medal at 10 years and maybe something else at 25 and 30 years. So nowadays, people, many companies look for organizations which offer them free food, or other, it is factored into the CTC, paid holidays, co-paid trainings. This happens in many cases where the employee may feel that this training or course that he wants to undertake is important for him, though that may not be the company's view. So some companies have developed processes where they would undertake a portion of the cost of the training. Vacation time, fitness memberships are very popular. In the previous company that I worked, the organization had contracted with another organization who ran a creche very near to the office. So for quite a few mothers with small babies, they were able to not only leave the baby there in the morning, but also once or twice during the day go on and check with the infant. Yes. So the first thing to do, or rather, as the saying goes, you cannot improve what you do not measure. So how do you measure? You have to measure through engagement surveys, culture audits, communication audits, dashboard creation. Dashboard creation is something, an example of which you may have seen in the airport, especially outside the washroom, where it says, how clean is it on a scale of 0 to 10? Virtual focus groups, virtual or in person, virtual communities. And the recommendations we have already spoken about in different in different parts of this presentation, but most people, what we look for is recognition, organization approach, and engagement board, which is visible to all the companies. Something like some desktops have what is your mood today, where you have a green, you have a blue, and a red smiley like emoji that you have to press. Engagement focus groups, engagement awareness training, and communication tactics. Is it the same old system of sending an email or a hard copy of a letter still good in these days of where we are talking about Signal nowadays and WhatsApp groups and Zoom meetings? Worker involvement programs, which also means programs outside the office, like volunteering to go to a nearby institute and spending time, teamwork, bonus schemes. Obviously, the results, as we all know, they are happy employees, referrals, the net promoter score, and the advocacy that I was talking about earlier. It reflects in the quality of work, and the end of which reflects in happy customers. And the next step to happy customers is better profitability and growth for the organization. There could be many more elements, but that also depends on what is the vision and the culture that the organization wants to build in terms of keeping its employees engaged. So I will leave you with a few employee engagement quotes. Turned on people figure out how to beat the competition. Turned off people only complain about being beaten by the competition. What you believe about employees comes out in how you treat them, and how you treat them ultimately determines how effectively you engage them. And one favorite quote, which I attribute to myself, is employee engagement and motivation is like taking a bath. You have to do it. thank you for your time and patience. Over to you, Captain.
Thank you, Karthik, for that very enlightening session. And should the participants have questions, you could sort of
if I stop presenting the screen, maybe I can see the chat window which they have.
Yeah, I could do that. So would you like me to read the questions out for you? Or could you see them yourself?
Yes, there is a comment from Arvind. Okay, there is a very nice input from me, for me, saying your chrysalis background is hidden. Yes, since I'm on this side of the camera, I did not realize that.
So I can take the first question from
Yes.
Dr. Srinivas, I think. So he says that there are a few quick starters in any organization where their dynamism is seen from the day one, and how to convert what he labels as introverts, that is maybe people who are not very engaged, quick starters. So what are the employee engagement strategies, basically?
So the simple thing would be to say, talk to them. But if I were to talk about an academic institution, talk to them is something that happens on a daily basis. I would also like to tie this up with what I talked about emotional intelligence, where people actually need to be trained to learn on how to respond not only to what is being said, but what is behind what is being said. Like I said, an introvert could be a person who we generally understand is shy of expressing himself or herself. Definitely, there would need to be some extra effort taken out to find out what exactly it is drives that person, and if necessary, involve that person in that kind of a team or an activity. Sometimes we have also seen unfortunate examples of where the team leader has an attitude of my way or the highway. So this tends to drive introverts even into more of a shell. Hence the point I'm repeating again about emotional training and empathy being very important.
Okay. Dr. Sai Ganesh says that most of your examples are related to the corporate world. Anything specific for academic institutions? Or you would treat the academic institution like a corporate?
The elements of people, processes, infrastructure, I would say, are more or less the same. But is there a difference? I'm sure there is a difference, because it is only a fixed group of people who are more or less responsible for the conduct, behavior, and output of another group of people, which is the students. So I would say the fixed group of people, by which I obviously mean the faculty and the infrastructure staff, is their effort to serving their customers, in this case, the students. So are the, like we say in management jargon, are the processes of the organization employee centric? Does it make it more easy for the customers to advocate that organization, which can easily be felt not only in the day-to-day processes, which could be the teaching processes, which could be the lab processes, which could be the multifarious other processes. It is also in what attitude and belief the organization has with respect to what they teach, ensuring a qualitative output in the students. Specifically for an organization to know what is to be done, I would say what I have said before is there has to be a measurement through different surveys. which could be formal or informal.
Okay, so you could have formal or informal surveys to leverage data on job satisfaction and things like that, and then sort of act upon them.
True.
Okay, my good friend Commander Joshi, and he's a colleague of mine too. He says that, do you see an increasing role for mental health workers? I assume he's talking about counselors and so on in HR departments. They're there, but we don't see too many of them, at least not in the mid and small organizations. So do you see an increasing role for such people going forward?
So thank you, Commander Joshi. This is a very interesting point because many a times we hear the statement where they say that HR is the HR department's job. It is not. HR is everybody's job. So if we have people who are interacting with us, if we have people who are reporting to us, many a times we may take on a very authoritative and strict main only because we are at the top of that pile for that present moment. Going forward, we have seen that, again, to repeat a little of what I have said, emotional intelligence and empathy is something that almost everyone needs to be aware and trained on. This is not normally the trend. That is one part of it. The second part is, do we have enough forums and opportunities for employees to talk openly about their mental health, which unfortunately is still considered a taboo, not only in our country, but in many countries around the world. So, do you see emerging potential? I would definitely say yes. How the structure and shape of it, it will be, I mean, it would depend on the organization and what would be their outlook towards it.
Sorry, I just got a call. Yeah. So, Professor Rahul Kargal from MBA VTU asked an interesting question. Says that promotions are few and far in between in academia. So, how do you motivate people really to stay engaged? Sometimes promotions are non-existent too. You know, professors have very few layers. It's a relatively flat organization. How do you motivate them? A tough question, I can tell you that. Yeah.
Now, I can understand that. And unfortunately, that is the limitation of the organization. Some schools of thought would say if we are linking promotions to our increased sense of engagement, then perhaps we need to rethink that. Even without getting a promotion, are we able to do more challenging stuff which stimulates us intellectually and gives us the wow effect at the end of having achieved that? Sorry, I would just like to finish this point. In my experience, I have found, and this is not totally related to the question, quite a few organizations, they struggle with basic processes. So unless the basic processes are set in place, looking for the next level of enhancing the quality of the process becomes very difficult. Yes, Captain, over to you.
Yeah. So, Rahul, actually, this is a very interesting question that you've asked. And I had this similar query several years back when I was associate professor in my previous organization. So one day I marched into the office of my chancellor and asked him the exact same question. What is it in there for me now? And he said, publish in Harvard Business School review, Harvard Business Review, or Harvard Business School. And that should motivate you to go and do that. So I think what Karthik mentioned is absolutely true. It need not be only in the form of a promotion and so on and so forth. You can intellectually stimulate yourself because professors are knowledge workers. And I think that's what should give us absolute joy and keep us motivated and engaged. And so thank you for that, Karthik. We have an interesting question from another colleague of mine, Professor Anant Popli, and he says, in your experience, what are the key challenges in implementing a people-first policy, as most businesses put client as their first stakeholder, or is there no conflict between the two?
Okay, thank you, Professor Anand. So how does the organization look at its people? Are they co-workers? Are they collaborators? Are they employees? The second question is, what is the function of the organization? Obviously, it is to satisfy the stakeholders. The key stakeholder in this case being not only the profitability of the organization, but satisfy primarily the customer, who not only goes away with a pleasant experience, but also is in a position uh, to advocate for that organization which he has been associated with. So that was just trying to give you the context to it. And it is also well understood that if the employee is unhappy, somewhere or other, it is going to affect the dealing that he or she has with the customer. Uh, while I will not speculate on it with respect to academia, it is very well seen in any kind of a restaurant or a shop that we go. Uh, a rude or an inattentive waiter is a primary source of dissatisfaction. There is no conflict between the two. I would further go to put it in a few words, saying an employee who is knowledgeable improves processes which satisfy customers, which leads to higher profitability. I think the link is very clear.
Okay. We have a question from Mervyn Ashley, who says that Mervyn is actually a very bright student of mine in the weekend executive program, which is extremely popular. And just for information, Karthik, we have one of the most popular executive MBA programs in this part of the world. So he is a part of that program, and he asks, today a lot of people introduce online programs, and so what happens when the response is very poor to online programs? What do you do? Is there a solution?
Okay, so we faced this same issue in the company that I was doing. Maybe a few questions without knowing the specifics or the background of why you're asking this. One, is it the right time? Because there is also a popular phrase now called as Zoom fatigue. We are in so many meetings throughout the day that we literally get tired of sitting in front of the camera and having the headphones on. The second thing is it really what the employee wants, or is it what is easy for the employer to do? I'm sure if you ask 150 employees what they want, you might get 200 different answers. The trick, according to me, before I say that, and all employees who will be willing to participate virtually may not be at the same level. Some would be satisfied with a very basic program, and some would need higher quality of programs. So can the employee engagement team look at it differently and introduce it separately? Or is the purpose just to tick off one more event on the employee engagement team's calendar? I'm sorry, Mervyn, this is very tricky. I do not think there is one answer for it, but my sense is if you're doing what everyone wants and at the time that they want, then I hope and wish that your response is better.
Okay. So good. So I would, Karthik, I would like to throw you a curveball and ask you whether, is this whole employee engagement thing does it make any sense? Or is the job more important? Is it the quality of the job that keeps people motivated? Is that the most important thing? Or, you can have strategies in keeping, to take people for Thank God It's Friday events and have a secret Santa event and so on and so forth. Do they matter, or is it really the quality of the job?
Okay. So my response to that is, if I look at the job of, say, a bus conductor or a person working in an office day to day, or a person in a McDonald's, uh, perhaps it may be true for some faculty also, 80% of the work that we do every day is routine. There is no getting around that. And that is the nature of the organization. If I think I can be creative 100% of my time at the job, that is not possible. So, my personal take on this would be, can I make that 80% more interesting? Perhaps not always so, but given the limitation of the organization is infrastructures and processes. Uh, a few minutes earlier, I alluded to AI and ML, which make faster decision making. Earlier, we used to send an email or a request to somebody and wait for the information to come back to us before we can take the next action. Now, thankfully, that day now is far away, because a lot of the information is already captured on systems, CRMs, databases, which let us execute our processes faster and efficiently. The second point in this, and which I find in many manufacturing and other organizations also, many a time when reviews take place, they only talk about what went wrong and uh, that it shouldn't happen the next time. There is very little time spent on relooking at the process and its KPIs itself to see how we could make that faster and smarter. And each time you do that, there is a new learning curve. You get different results which need to be analyzed and see if the desired output is mentioned. And then you go on to the next step of improving it all over again. Uh, Many organizations think that it happens by chance. Uh, Unfortunately, no. There has to be time and effort involved in improving the process of working itself.
Right, right. So, yeah, um, I think in a way you sort of say that the job design is extremely important, um, as well as process design and so on and so forth,
True.
in keeping people engaged and motivated. Last couple of questions. So we have my MBA student. One of them says, um, he says that now that people are working from home, how do you keep them engaged? That is, he's assuming, I think, that people working from home are inherently disengaged, and people working in the office are inherently engaged. So that is his question. I think Ashil, probably doesn't work that way. There are people who are in the office and disengaged. There are people at home who are engaged. So it also deals with individual, choice and motivation levels and energy levels and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Unfortunate but true.
Yeah. Sana Tabassum, another MBA student of mine, says she feels she's under stress. She's joined the MBA program. So I don't know if you're a stress management guru, Karthik, but she wants to know how to manage stress.
Yeah, Sana, if you know, please let me. And I hardly think that there is anybody nowadays who is not under some kind of stress or other. Um, how do I try and deal with it? Um, Okay, so if anybody has occasion to see my WhatsApp DP, I have summed up what I will tell you. So it is a Latin phrase which says "Omnia causa funt," which means whatever happens, happens for a reason. So while that may be a very fatalistic response, to a large extent, that is true. And I think a lot of the stress that we sometimes get is also from our tendency to overthink things. So, like I said, if there is one formula for stress management, uh, I think you would be a richer person than Jeff Bezos today.
Nice. So I think we'll come to the last question. And this is again a question from my good friend and colleague from the Dayanand Sagar institutions, Dr. Venkatesh BR. He's bold you an absolute googly. He says that most people in academia choose this profession as a last resort. These are Dr. Venkatesh's words. I am just the messenger. I'm reading them, and he says that. So considering that many people are inherently disengaged, and many of them come with very low passion. So how do you keep these guys engaged?
Okay, I will give you a flip side of the situation that I have seen with Mr. Venkatesh's question. So when I was working in this organization for Tata Housing, there would be many MTechs in civil engineering who were okay with the jobs as site supervisors. Perhaps that was the nature of their contract, that they were not permanent employees, but they were contractual. And to the only answer, if I give it, will seem like a lot of funda. I mean, many a time things are inherent with our own beliefs, values, attitudes, and behavior. And we all know nowadays that being in a bad mood, worrying is leading to stress, and which also leads to different physical and mental manifestations. Unfortunately, the like we spoke about the poor awareness on mental health, this is also not something that gets talked about or taught in many of our schools and colleges. There is always, like most companies do, if they look at the quarterly numbers, nobody really looks at what is behind achieving those numbers. What is the human cost? What could be the process cost? Or what opportunities the organization could be losing? So my answer, I mean, to sum it very simply, is it is a personal thing. Uh, if a person wants and believes that things can improve, things will improve. Otherwise, no.
Right, Karthik, and I think thank you very much indeed for your insights and your patience in being here with us today. I will now hand you over to my colleague, Professor B.V. Rajan. Professor Rajan is the Deputy Director for the Executive Education Program here, and he sort of manages the Executive MBA program. Professor Rajan, are you around?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Professor Rajan.
Good afternoon, sir. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. Thank you, sir. So, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had an insightful session. On behalf of the Senior Leadership Management at Dayanand Sagar University, our distinguished faculty, my colleagues, and all our students, I would like to thank our distinguished speaker today, Mr. Karthikesh Ramachandran, for giving us all an amazing talk about employee engagement in academics. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramachandran. I'm sure we all have some great points discussed today as our key takeaways. My personal favorites being the one about where you spoke about Frederick Herzberg's motivation hygiene theory, the Maslow hierarchy applied to employee engagement. You also beautifully and seamlessly included a case study in your talk, the examples about the two MDs who had different approaches towards having lunch with their employees, and some good examples about organization culture. I guess all these examples made this topic more palatable to me, and I'm sure for everyone from an employee engagement point of view. I thank you for spending your valuable time with all of us, sharing your incredible work experiences. Thank you, Mr. Ramachandran, for all of us, and have a good evening to everyone, and happy Makara Sankranti to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Rajan. It was indeed a privilege. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you, Professor Nagaraj and Professor Murthy, and my good friend Arvind also, and wishing you all a very happy Sankranti.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I would like to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Murthy, for giving us the opportunity to host this program, as well as my colleague, Arvind Srinivas. Thank you so much, Kartikesh, and we'll keep in touch. And all of you who participated in this program, thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here, and we'll catch up with you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.